Something that I love to do while I'm hiking and backpacking, and something I've been doing a lot lately with all this social distancing going on, and a lot of people have been getting in touch with me so that they can start as well, is painting. And that would be watercolor painting specifically. This is one of my own personal sketchbooks. So since we can't really go and do the things we may want to, like going to the climbing gym or going to see friends, I find that a really fun way to pass the time is watercolor painting. You know, you don't have to spend an hour on it. You don't even have to spend 30 minutes on it. Sometimes it's just nice to spend 5 minutes throwing around some paints. So personally, I like watercolor in a lot of ways because I think it's easy to get into, it's easy to have a lot of fun with, and I believe that's probably because, at least for me, it seems very similar to just drawing with markers, at least in the way that you can overlap different colors and get different effects by doing so. So let's take a quick little look at my kit here. First we have just a little sketchbook. This is light enough where if you're bringing it on a backpacking trip or a thru hike, you could also journal in it. Maybe journal around your paintings or, you know, paint a little picture from the day and then write about that scene. I just bought this at Target, but you can easily get a sketchbook just like this on Amazon or many other different places online. Now, this isn't anything special at all. This isn't even watercolor paper. As maybe you progress, it is nice to use watercolor paper, but just starting out, you know, you don't need to be spending a ton of money on something like this right off the bat. So, just a small little sketchbook from Target. Then we have Winsor & Newton Watercolor Set. It's just a small little travel size thing. It does not weigh very much and it is not very bulky. Also feels quite sturdy. Now, I just bought this at Michael's, but you could easily, again, also find it on Amazon. So just a small little watercolor set. The top part here is for mixing your water and mixing your colors in. You have 3 little spots for that. And then on the bottom, it comes with 12 different colors. So we have our sketchbook and our small watercolor set here. Now, as a paintbrush, I use a water brush. And since this is watercolor, this is actually filled up with water. So you can, as you're using this brush, just squeeze it and some water drops out. The more water you use, the lighter the color is going to be, and the less water, the more pigmented and opaque that color is going to be. So this is a very cool thing. You can find them just about anywhere. Walmart, Target, Amazon. You know, they're super cheap and they are really, really awesome. You know, you don't need a water cup. You don't need a whole set of paintbrushes. This is what I use for like 99% of the watercolor painting I do. Now, something else fun that I do that may be different from a lot of other watercolor painters is I use a calligraphy brush. And similar to the water brush I was just showing you, this one you can also squeeze, except black ink is going to come out. So I don't really squeeze it much unless I need to get more pigment out. But this is also almost like a paintbrush, except it like refills itself. So you can get some really, really thin lines and you can get some really, really thick lines. And I think it is just a ton of fun to use for painting. So I use a water brush and a calligraphy pen. And then last but not least is a pencil. I like mechanical pencils just for that really thin line. You know, but really, any pencil will work. So for me, watercolor and painting or making any sort of art, editing photos or editing video or, you know, just doodles is a great way to kind of unwind. You know, maybe you've had a long day or a stressful day or, you know, in these times, like, that kind of stuff happens. Making art and just sitting down for even 5 to 10 minutes and just throwing some paint on a page or just scribbling and doodling is a really great stress reliever. It's a lot of fun and it's a great way to clear your mind. So personally, in these times, I've been painting a lot. So let's say you're out, you're hiking, you're in a beautiful place, you know, just like we are now. You can get out your little set, maybe you have it in a Ziploc, and you can just paint what you see. You know, really the possibilities of what you do are endless. You could make these things abstract. You can just do whatever you like with it. But just to sit down and mess around with it is a ton of fun. So, here we are in a beautiful place. Let's do a quick little painting. So it was pretty hot out while I was painting outside before. I did finish that painting. Nice little picture. Kind of made it my own, although it was the middle of the day and certainly over 100 degrees. I wanted more of a sunrise, you know, because that was the type of painting that makes me happy. So here we're going to do another one. Now that we're at home, we're just going to work from a picture that I had taken back in November around my birthday. I've already done just a rough little sketch here with a pencil, you know, just to get the shape of the mountain. But from here on out, we're going to be using the rest of my tools, the water brush, my calligraphy brush pen, and of course, the watercolors. So I like to start out all my paintings either with just a rough sketch and pencil, or a lot of the times I just go right in with the brush pen. I personally really like this pen and these types of things because you can get really interesting line qualities and line weights. You know, I can make that line super thick to maybe indicate an area in shadow, or I can really thin that line out. And it really makes every little line unique and interesting. You know, no line is the exact same, and they all have their own little feeling and emotion to them. So you'll notice personally, I do a lot of hatching, which is just these skinny little lines to kind of indicate shadows. And, you know, you don't have to do that. It's just something that I personally enjoy, and I think that's kind of the point of painting, is what you enjoy doing. I'm not going for realism. I'm just trying to have some fun painting, trying to unwind, and that's ultimately what I love most about it. I remember when I was a kid, I would come home and, you know, maybe I had a long day or a rough day, and, you know, painting was a way that I could just sit down and kind of forget about what else was going on in the world. And I think maybe that's why so many people recently have kind of reached out to me and asked about painting supplies or how they can get into watercolors, because, you know, they're looking for something that they too can focus on that isn't, you know, the 24-hour news cycle. And in a time where we can't all go outside and do the things we want to do, we can't go to the gym, it's nice to be able to sit down and do something fun at home for yourself. And for me, that's very much so painting. So this is a mountain somewhere in southern Arizona, the Superstition Mountains. This is Weaver's Needle. I haven't been there in a good long while, but I really look forward to going back sometime soon. And I think painting is a good way to kind of revisit these places, you know, if maybe you can't get out and be there in person. So I see one side of this mountain is very much so in shadow, so I'm focusing a lot more of my attention and energy on that side. Then the other side I'm just going to kind of leave as is, and I'll fill that in with some color later on. You know, you don't have to paint the exact colors you see, just paint the colors you want to paint. I think the painting comes out better that way. You know, we're not going for realism here. Now the trick with watercolor is starting out very light, and you can always add more layers on top of it later. So I just start out with a very light blue here. You could start out with a light green or a light red. And I'm just kind of throwing some of this paint onto the paper. Remember, this isn't a fancy sketchbook. This isn't fancy watercolor paper. This is just like a $3 sketchbook I bought at Target. And I think if you don't spend too much money on your sketchbook, then you won't feel so bad about maybe really messing up in it. You know, and I don't mean messing up as making mistakes, but messing up just as having more fun. Because sometimes it's a lot more fun to just experiment than it is to aim for perfection with everything you do. Now maybe you've added your first color in, your oranges or your greens, or in my case my blue. Maybe you've finished up with that and you really like how the painting is already looking. You know, you can just leave it like that. You don't have to add any more colors. I've done plenty of paintings that are just monochrome. You know, and with each one of these paintings, you're going to live and you're going to learn, and each one will be better than the last. You know, there may be some outliers in there, but ultimately this is all just a learning experience. And this is all just a fun time to kind of sit down and, you know, do something different.
watch some YouTube, go back and watch some JupiterHikes videos you've never seen before. You know, go back and watch every JupiterHikes video. It's a great activity while you're painting. I'm really liking how this painting is starting to come out. You know, I've only been sitting here doing this for about 13 minutes. So this may just be about a 20-minute painting I'm doing here. You know, and it's just a nice 20 minutes to kind of get away and let your mind clear. Just have some fun spreading some colors around some paper. I know a lot of times I would sit at home and watch Bob Ross tutorials of him painting mountains, and I'd sit there with my acrylic paints and I'd paint right along with him. You know, and if you do get into watercolor, these little paintings can be great gifts as well. I know I like to paint things from my friends' lives, you know, maybe a trail they've done. You know, I can paint a scene from their photos, you know, let them go off into the world and spread joy to someone else in a different way. I had fun painting them, and now they can enjoy them in whatever way that may be. Maybe looking at it and throwing it out, or maybe hanging it up somewhere in their room, you know, somewhere they can look at it occasionally and just be reminded of you and reminded of that time they did that thing. You know, and you don't have to use the same colors that I use. I think it's good to pick out the colors that you enjoy most. I'm not trying to spend the most amount of time doing this and trying to make it perfect. I just want to have fun for a little while. So now we've done this nice little painting together. I hope you've learned a lot from doing this, or maybe just had fun listening to me speak about it. And I do hope you try it yourself. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but over time I promise you'll get a lot better and create little artworks that, you know, you never thought in your wildest dreams that you were going to be creating in the beginning. So, thanks for painting with me today. I hope that you also get into watercolor. It can be a very cheap and very fun little hobby to have. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video.